Hello, my name is Gloria J. Browne-Marshall. I am a professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice and your moderator for this evening's program. I am so honored to be part of this program, Unbought and Unbossed Conversations. And we are going to be learning more about our shero, Shirley Anita Chisholm. But first, I would like us to hear from the co-sponsor of this program, the Reverend Al Sharpton. He is an internationally renowned civil rights leader, founder and president of the National Action Network, which has more than 100 chapters across the country. Hailed by former President Barack Obama as a champion for the downtrodden, Reverend Sharpton is the host of Politics Nation on MSNBC, a nationally syndicated daily radio show, Keeping It Real, and a nationally broadcast radio show on Sunday titled The Hour of Power. Thank you so much for being with us today, Reverend Al Sharpton.
Well, thank you, and I thank all of you that are watching this. Shirley Chisholm clearly was a figure that I feel does not get near what she deserved in terms of the history of this country and the history of our community. And she, in many ways, was the forerunner to many things that occurred after her. Clearly, Barack Obama and Vice President Kamala Harris. But even when we talk about social services, Head Start, education, things that she championed way before it was popular. When I was very young and growing up in Brooklyn, New York, I was a boy preacher at Washington Temple Church. In 1968, I was turning 13 years old. James Farmer, a civil rights leader, came to Brooklyn to run against whoever the Democrats nominated for Congress. And because he had a civil rights background, our bishop and all sent us to help James Farmer. Shirley Chisholm unexpectedly beat everybody in that primary and became the Democratic nominee, beating a sitting city council person. She was an assemblywoman. And she said to me, young man, you should go with me and I will show you how we build people movements. And from then on, I was a devout volunteer follower of Shirley Chisholm. Ended up being youth director of a campaign for president in 1972, working around Ada Smith, who later became a state senator, and others. Victor Robles, who became city clerk. She invested in young people, but she more than invest, she was a very strict and very caring person at the same time. She would tell me, sit up erect, pronounce this word right. She was an educator and she was committed. The thing I think that you must remember is Shirley Chisholm had to fight against racism and sexism. I was shocked to go in the room as a teenager and hear some of the Black elected leaders talk about what they weren't going to let a woman lead them to do. And she had to face this horrific misogyny, even in Black political leadership in the 70s and going forward. In 1972, they had the historic National Black Political Convention in Gary, Indiana. This was the year Mrs. C was running, we called her Miss C, running for president. They did not even invite her. 10,000 Blacks from all over the country laying out a political agenda, and the Black woman running for president was not invited. And many of the Black male leadership there had already committed to George McGovern over her. And she would take the slight. I've been in meetings with some of the leaders of the women's lib movement that came of age at the time. They wouldn't give her the front profile she should, because she had to deal with racism in the feminist movement. So to understand Shirley Chisholm is understand someone strong enough, tough enough, and determined enough to face rejection from her own people because of their own misogyny, rejection from her own gender because of race, yet she fought on anyhow. And because she fought, later Black women have become the critical part and recognized as such of this country turning the clock backwards after the attempt to turn it another way under Donald Trump. We're dealing with the seeds of an unbought, unbossed woman, making sure that at least she does not go unrecognized. And that's what tonight's about. And I'm grateful for you for doing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend Sharpton. This is an evening where we have the co-sponsorship of the Shirley Chisholm Cultural Institute, as well as NAN. And we want to make sure that the National Action Network is seen in its full display. Its conference is coming up within the next 2 weeks. As we go forward, as we talk about the political past, we also need to talk about the present and the future. We have with us Congresswoman Cori Bush. Congresswoman Cori Bush is a registered nurse, community activist, organizer, single mother, and ordained pastor for the people of St. Louis. Congresswoman Bush is serving her first term as a representative of Missouri's 1st Congressional District in the United States House of Representatives. She is the first Black woman and first nurse to represent Missouri, the first woman to represent Missouri's 1st Congressional District, and the first activist from the movement fighting for Black lives elected to the United States Congress. Congresswoman Bush has lived the struggles that many in her community face. She has personally experienced being unhoused and evicted and is a survivor of police, sexual, and domestic violence. She centers those hardships, though, in her fight for regular, everyday people. Her mission is to do the very most for all of the people of Missouri's 1st Congressional District, starting with those who have the very least. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us, Congresswoman Cori Bush.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for this invitation. I am absolutely honored.
Thank you. We're going to talk about 2 subjects very important to you, we know. The first one is voting rights, and the second is gun control. When we talk about voting rights, the regular people, and those are the people who are listening today, their families, they want to know how they can be involved, but they also want to know what they're dealing with. We saw this powerful surge of Black voters. We saw a wave of people like yourselves going into office, and yet we see this backlash, which is historically what has happened so many times when Black people exercise their political power. I want to talk about what we can do today, given the backlash we're experiencing from the conservatives, but I also want to look forward to the 2022 elections. So, what can regular people do, given the backlash we're experiencing right now?
Well, one thing is remembering that every single person is needed in this fight. And so when we talk about regular people, usually, or at least my experience has been, when we talk about regular people, we don't connect the extraordinary that's also a part of, just being a regular person. Well, that's where we have to look at it and say, what is it that I bring to this fight? Because each and every one of us has something. And so when I look and I'm disgusted, at what's happening, how much will I let that disgust fuel my passion into action? And so when I get to that point, then what is my place in this? So because everybody does have a place, is my place, do I like to talk to people? Am I that extrovert? Or am I that person that loves to use the phone? Am I always on my computer? Am I somebody that does not mind knocking doors? Am I somebody that is just a born leader and I can galvanize people with, like, what is my thing? Or is my thing to be that support person that can help finance these issues, these organizations and groups and these efforts? Finding out what your thing is and putting that to work. We're out of time trying to figure out this hierarchy of who can do what now. Like, that day is over with. Like, because we're missing it by thinking you have to go through these steps in order to be seen. You have to go through these steps to be this or that. No, I I'm sitting in Congress right now as somebody who never held political office before. I did not come from a name, from fame, from a title, from a family background. I came from struggle and hardship and adversity, and I came from putting my one foot in front of the other, because faith without works is dead. And I learned that the hard way. And so I put that into action, and that's what we need across this country. And so we talk about the like steps. So first of all, that's one, saying yes. Yes, okay, whatever needs to happen. I don't understand it. I'm uncomfortable doing this thing, but yes, I'll go do it. So how do I do that? Some of it's going to be looking at what groups or organizations or people that who is actually doing the work. You don't have to go to big groups and big organizations. Some of it is just people in your own neighborhood that are already working that need help. So connect with, whether it's a big organization or whether it's a local community group. Connect, find a way, volunteer, get involved. Or if you can't do that, send your money, send your dollar, get involved with that. And don't forget, these people we have in office, they are our voices in those seats. And so we cannot neglect to allow them to feel the pressure from the community. And so if you know that your representative, that your congressperson, your council person, that your alder person, your trustee, whoever it is, your senator, if you know that they have not been representing your community, then that's where we have to push. And when we talk about our senators right now, because as a strong advocate for HR 4, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, we got, the House, and let me go back to HR 1. HR 1, we got in the House, we got that thing done. We sent it, and now it's just sitting there waiting for consideration in the United States Senate. That's not good enough, because those people that are sitting there are elected. And so that's our job. So not only are we should be calling our senators, we should be asking for meetings with our senators, but also, who are we looking at for 2022 and 2024? So we can't not do one thing and not do the other, because if we want them out, so yeah, we have to deal with where we are right now, but what are we doing to make sure that we are equipping people to take those seats in the coming years? So that's the other part of this. So we have to do both at the same time. And remember that you cannot affect change by thinking that, by allowing people to tell you that you can't and that you're not ready. Just do the work.
Okay, now you know what? I feel like putting something in the offering plate now. So, all right, but it's like, since we took this to church, I want to go here to this point. Okay, without vision, the people perish. What's the vision? What's the political vision? What's the vision for national criminal justice reform? And I know that fits into gun control, because people need to know, not only are the prosecutors not prosecuting police officers the way they should, police officers are actually getting away with murder. So we have 18,000 police jurisdictions around this country. We can't have piecemeal reform. We need national reform. Where are we with national reform and this gun control issue? What is the vision?
Right. So our path to freedom requires that we work in partnership with social movements. And I know that sometimes people have tried to push that away to try to do the work in as far as policy and legislation, aside from or apart from social movements. But I decided that I had to marry the two, so as an activist, I walked into Congress, and I'm seated in Congress as a politivist. I say it all the time. As a matter of fact, I think one of the first times I said it was on Reverend Sharpton's television show. But as a politivist, because the activist in me says, apply pressure, keep pushing, use your words, be unapologetic, be unbossed, be unbought. Remember who you are, be your authentic self. And the politician side of me says, I got a pen, I got a security pen that says I belong here, and I have the power of the pen where I can write legislation. So putting the two of those together. And so when we talk about, so what I just said before, talking about who are we putting in these seats, so that has to always be turning. So never let that go. So while we're looking at who are we getting ready to put in these seats, that now we have to deal with who is in the seat. So as we're sitting there and we're thinking, and when we talk about criminal legal reform, and I'm fighting, saying, what we have to end qualified immunity for police. We have to, and my thing has always been defund the police. And I know not everybody agrees with that, but when we look at what happened with when we look at what's happened with even with George Floyd. But then we think about Philando Castile and how after Philando Castile, when that governor said, "Hey, we're going to give our $12 million to help with training for police officers in this state," and then George Floyd was murdered with a knee on his neck. So was that the training? So that's not the thing. So what if we took that $12 million and put that $12 million into communities to help build our communities, to help sustain our social that safety net? What if we did that? What if we put it into education? What if we put it into our unhoused community? What if we put it into mental health services, and put it into making sure that we have a livable wage for all of our folks, like those things? But so those are some of the things, but we cannot do this alone. I can talk about it, I can write this legislation, but if I don't have colleagues that are willing to stand with me and to help get this thing across, then it won't happen. So as the community, we're paying attention now to who we're voting in office. No more because that name is the name I know, I'm checking that one. No more is it because this person has the most money that I'm going to go with it. No more is it because all the church is supporting this person, or all the blah, 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 or all this person. No, none of that, none of that. Who were you before you decided to run for office? Who were you on? Did you care about the community then? And then when you lost your first time, did you stay in the community, or did you go hide and then came back when it was time to run again? Like, those are the things that we have to pay attention to. So those are some of the things that we have to do. So we have people that are saying yes, and I don't mind being alone and being uncomfortable pushing these policies. But when we don't have colleagues that are willing to stand, that makes it difficult. But what folks that are not in office, that never want to be in office, that just want to support as community members, what you can do, you apply that pressure. You apply that pressure, because that's one thing that I've seen in Congress is people will say, well, you know what, I would support this, but my community doesn't want that. So when the community is calling those representatives, call your representatives, call your senators, send emails and tell them, because when they have this slew of requests coming out of their district or out of their state, then that's when they say, you know what, I got to stand with my people, because these are the people that elected me and put me here.
Thank you so much. And I know that you have just a few more moments with us. And this is a big question about the two major issues you see that are standing in the way of women, Black women, getting into politics. I wanted to ask this question because this is a program around Shirley Chisholm, learning more about her. And you've had so many experiences in which your career and her career have overlapped in amazing ways. What two ways that you saw you overcame that other Black women who want to go into politics might be facing and fearful that they can't overcome it?
There's so many ways, but first of all, the way that we look, that's something that I think she and I have in common is, being Black women. And one thing about it is I kept hearing about how I was too dark. I would get treated a different way because of the not only the fact that I was a Black woman, but because of the hue, so that was something that I fought. People automatically assumed that I didn't have the educational background, or I didn't have, they just assumed certain things about me simply because of the color of my skin. And then that caused people to also decide that I'm not going to donate. Or, you know what, I love you. I would hear this all the time. I love you, Cori. Oh, you inspire me. And so people would give me their $5, and I appreciated every single dollar, every coin. Thank you. But when you say, I love you, Cori, and you give me $5, but then that mediocre politician that you don't love, that you've never even parted your lips to say I love, you barely even like them, but you gave them 500, that is where we have the problem. And so that is one of those things that we have to push. In 2018, I haven't seen the 2020 numbers, but in 2018, research showed that Black women received the least amount in donations than any other person that ran for office. That is a problem, because we are not underqualified. We're not the ones like collectively we're all uneducated and we don't know. None of that. Absolutely, it's the opposite. And so, people, I think that that's something that we both have had issues with. And the last thing I'll say on this note, Reverend Sharpton kind of alluded to it, was even with our own. I went through a lot of things with even Black men as running for office, telling me that I didn't have a head. I'm a single woman, so I don't deserve. I can't have such a high position. Shutting me out from different things because I'm a single woman. That was really an issue. And then also just feeling like, you know, as a woman, you need somebody that you needed to have a mentor that was a man that could help you to get to navigate what I raised 2 children. I ran from bullets. I didn't see you running from the bullets with me. Never once when those dogs chased me in Ferguson, I didn't see you with me. You know, when I went back for over 400 days out there on the streets, fighting for my life and the lives of others, trying to save folks, you weren't there with me. I was looking and you weren't there. I did that on my own. And so in the same way that I did that, I can do this in Congress, and we have shown that. And so Black women, I'm telling you, stand up. Don't look at what people are telling you. Don't let them tell you it's not time. You're not ready. You don't look the part. You don't sound the part. Your hips too big. Your lips too big. Your hair is unprofessional. Forget all of that. We don't care. You don't have to forget their dignified looks. Forget their respectability, politics, and all of that. You be you. You stand up because there are people who look just like you who deserve representation.
Oh, okay now. Okay. Now, you didn't know I'm originally from Kansas City. And yes, so Missouri in the house. All right, thank you. I know you have to go. Congresswoman, you have fired us up. Thank you so much.
Yes,
Be well, be blessed.
Thank you. Have a great one, you all.
Wonderful. Wonderful. We are here in this Shirley Chisholm Cultural Institute and National Action Network co-sponsored event focused on Shirley Chisholm. That was just amazing. And we're going to have a great conversation right now with Barbara Bullard. And Barbara is managing member of the B. Bullard LLC and entrepreneur. She's a publicist, writer, and producer. Now, this is the short bio I want you to know. She also works as a social innovator and catalyst for cultural transformation. But working to restore Shirley Chisholm's legacy for almost 2 decades, Barbara produced the national unveiling of the Shirley Chisholm Forever Stamp, and I have mine, in collaboration with the United States Postal Service, for which she received a presidential proclamation by President Barack Obama. Yes, she serves as president of the Shirley Chisholm Cultural Institute, dedicated to the continuation of Chisholm's legacy. Thank you so much, Barbara. This has been a brainchild and a wonder, and I'm so honored to be a part of it. And we are joined also by Tylik McMillan. And Tylik McMillan serves as the National Director of Youth and College Policy Advisor for the National Action Network. Tylik helps move the organization from demonstration to legislation. He works to educate lawmakers and stakeholders on the challenges and opportunities facing our communities by advocating for more resources and policies that help invest and advance economic and social equality in our communities. Thank you so much, both of you, and we're going to have a conversation. And this conversation, I think, is so important because Shirley Chisholm was a woman who said, and I quote, "As a teacher and a woman, I do not think I will ever understand what kind of values can be involved in spending $9 billion and more, I am sure, on elaborate, unnecessary, and impractical weapons when several thousand disadvantaged children in the nation's capital can get nothing." That was in March of 1969, almost to the date, 52 years ago. And she left a legacy of advocacy. And so when I speak to you about advocacy, and I'm thinking about advocacy, how do you envision our communities going forward, given what you all have to offer? Where are we going from here? And once again, I present to you, without vision, the people perish. What is the vision? What should the regular person listening to this be doing? And we'll start with Barbara.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you, Congresswoman Bush. I mean, she set the stage, okay, for this conversation. In reference to Ms. Chisholm's legacy, we need to take a look at all the things that she put out there because she left a roadmap for us. She planted seeds for our trees to grow, you know. She actually set up the strategy. Community organizing is a must. We have to, from the ground, and who better to have today on this program than Congresswoman Cori Bush, of course, Reverend Al Sharpton, without saying. I think that, yes, we use social media a lot, but we also have to use social media more and more and more in a way that we're bringing our voices together and we're standing up and we're actually spreading our voice to the Hill, spreading our voice to Senate, demanding what we deserve as citizens of the United States of America.
And we look to the future. And I know they say, well, the young people will inherit the earth. But, until I'm gone, I think I still have a few more things to contribute. But that vision for the future has to involve our youth. And so,
Yeah.
Tylik, when you talk about the investment in our communities, what does that look like?
Yeah, first and foremost, again, thank you so much for having me, and thank you to Barbara for agreeing to do this program. What I would say to that, as you all may know, National Action Network helped convene the March on Washington in 2020, where over 200,000 people showed up to Washington, and I had an honor of speaking there at that march. And I think what we say is, we're not here in this moment to negotiate justice. We're not here to just talk about justice. We're not here for justice to be on the back burner, but we are here to demand justice in this moment. And when I think about the legacy of Shirley Chisholm and who she was, I think her willingness to upend the status quo by simply offering to bring us to the table with backbone. I think a lot of times we see elected officials in these offices with no backbone. But I think when we have someone who has backbone, who is not moved by the wind, who is not swayed by which way the wind may blow, but stands firmly in their own wisdom and what we deserve in this moment. We deserve quality education. We deserve healthcare. We deserve these things. We deserve to feel safe in our communities. And I believe when we have elected officials in these positions, as Representative Cori Bush stated, that's when we will begin to move the culture forward. That's when we begin to move our nation closer and to heal this nation. But first and foremost, before we are able to get these things that we know we deserve, this country needs to be able to recognize the pain of over 400 years of slavery and white supremacy that this country has built itself on, and misogyny, as we heard about when it comes to our women. Then we'll be able to live up to the true ideals of this country. But it first happens when we legislate with authority, and we speak with authority, and we have folks in these positions who have backbone.
And from a political activist standpoint, from the standpoint of informing our communities, we have lots of social media, but the content doesn't seem to get to the very serious issues we should all know about. I want to figure out, if I'm in my community and I want to do something, what are the ways in which the regular person can get involved in making their community a better place? And I say this from a standpoint as a college professor, someone who's written books, someone who talks in many different arenas. But how do you continue to connect the people and empower them to feel that they too have the power to make change in their communities?
Well, I like to, which I mentioned to you guys on the side in the conversation we had yesterday, we truly here at the Shirley Chisholm Cultural Institute believe that storytelling is the revolution. Mm-hmm. So within storytelling, within film development, within documentaries, I think, so much of us are so associated with those particular mediums. We need to be able to tell our stories because if someone else is telling our story, then we're not empowered. I mean, Miss Chisholm, her story was being erased for decades. The structure that was placed in the United States of America was built so that in 2021, we were not supposed to be talking about the legacy of Shirley Chisholm. So fast forward into 2021, what we should be doing now, I speak to all the writers, all the producers, all the seniors that have oral history, to be able to share their voices among each other, because a lot of us still are not understanding, from what I'm understanding in the community, how empowered we can be and how powerful our voices still are, even in the middle of what what's been happening in COVID and Black Lives Matter, we still are not understanding the relevance of our voices. So I truly believe, and the Institute also believes, that to be able to have a dialogue, and which we're having today, and to be able to take that dialogue and spread it out in all different mediums, on all different mediums, is a form that can be able to help nationally, locally, and globally in terms of our lives.
And as we step into the same question, Tylik, and just let the audience know that your questions are next. So get them ready, put them in the chat, and we're going to be presenting your questions as well as part of this conversation. So I want us to know that we have power, but Tylik, how can people tap into that power? How can they realize they are empowered to make the changes they want to see?
As we will say in the streets, ain't no power like the power of the people, because the power of the people don't stop. When I see things that are happening across the country, when I think of example for New York City ending qualified immunity, you cannot tell me the power of the people does not work. It does, or the power of protesting does not work. Or we see where we're banning because of the protests across the country in response to Breonna Taylor ending no-knock warrants and seeing that on the books. You cannot tell me the power of the people does not work. And so I think it does not take some fancy title. It does not take some title as activist or you to be on the front lines for you to be able to do this work. But I believe when you are your authentic self, when you are yourself and you are passionate about these issues, you can be on the front line protesting. You can be the one that's organizing, different petitions. You can be the one that's fundraising money for these grassroots organizations. And so there are several lanes, but I feel like when you find your niche and when you find what you're passionate about, we all have something to give. I think of this movement as a big machine. There's not one way to do it. There's not one particular part to it. But I feel when everybody finds their gift and when everybody is their authentic self, then we can move this movement forward and fighting for that thing that we call justice.
And we have people in the chat saying, wow, woo, go. Yes, we have so much enthusiasm, and that built up of enthusiasm. And then you have the people go out in Georgia and not just elect, a Black senator, but to go forward and continue to elect people and then have this backlash. Now, once we have this backlash, people think, well, what was my vote to do? What was it that I gave that's been now taken away by these elected officials, these conservatives who are attempting to undermine Black political power? And so this sense of undermining, I think people don't understand the backlash is that from the time period of 1870, when the 15th Amendment gave Black men the right to vote, as well as 1920, when women gained the right to vote, there's always been a backlash. How do we keep people inspired? How do we keep their minds and hearts in the game so that they don't see the defeat and know that it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back? They're always going to come for us when we show our power. But how do we keep them inspired and keep them moving despite the undermining in this so-called democracy of what are basic rights of citizens? And we're going to start with Tylik this time.
Yeah, I think understanding that this fight that we're in, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're not just fighting for our families and folks that we know, but I echo the words of late Congressman Elijah Cummings, that we're fighting for generations yet unborn. So this fight that we're in, I think you should ask yourself this question: when our children's children are looking in the history books, will you be able to say that you stood on the right side of history? And that's the question that we ask ourselves. I remember myself being an intern for the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation and in conversation with John Lewis. And he said, we marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge and they told us to go back, but we have so much to lose and we still have yet so much to gain. So we cannot afford to go back. So understanding where we have come from, we're standing on the shoulders of giants, of sheroes and heroes whose name we do not know. I'm aware that Martin Luther King was not jailed in Alabama, knifed down in his chest and shot down on the balcony in Memphis for us to bow our heads today. I'm clear that Fannie Lou Hamer didn't say, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired," for us to wallow in places. But when we understand that this fight, we're fighting for generations yet unborn, and the things that we do now, it will echo through generations, as President Barack Obama says, and know that what you do now in this moment will determine which side of history you stand on. And so you ask yourself that question. And I think when you really think about that and think about the future of your children and your children's children, it will really push folks to get involved in this moment.
All right, now we're having church up here. I'm going to put my tithing in. Okay, Barbara, speak to this. How do you keep the inspiration going? Tylik, that was wonderful. And we also have a question that we're going to have right after you finish, Barbara. But how do you keep that inspiration going? I saw all those people dancing in the street, and you saw the instant backlash of Donald Trump and the conservatives. You saw the attack on the Capitol and that level of violence. And that was a lynch mob, actually. That's what lynch mobs look like, in case people had forgotten, if they didn't go online and look at some of these lynch pictures of Black women as well as Black men and children being lynched. So this backlash was expected, but that spirit inside that keeps us going. How do you keep that light, that fire in the people so that they continue to vote, continue to push for their rights?
Well, listening to Tylik, thank you so much, Tylik. Makes me think about history, right? And the Sankofa bird. You know, we cannot move forward unless we look behind, right? To be able to understand our history, which they keep trying to rip from us, guys. You know, they're not teaching our history in most of the schools, you know, to be able to learn more about our history, because there again are the seeds to our existence. There again are the seeds to our sustainability. There again are the seeds to our future and future generations, how Tylik had just put that. And until we start forming ways to understand our history and understand the relevance of it, we've got a ways to go. You know, we've got a ways to go, because as we talk among each other and we talk about the history that has been laid in front of us, there's so much information that's right there. As you mentioned, lynching is not like, when I saw the actual noose in 2021 in Washington, D.C., I just kept thinking about, you know, Mary Turner and other historical figures that you may not know about that suffered from that news, right? So I think that the more we investigate our past, the more we're going to be able to encourage ourselves, because we're still here.
That is
And
so true.
you know what I mean? And encourage our children.
Yes. And my book, She Took Justice, The Black Woman, Law, and Power, begins with Queen Nzinga and ends with Shirley Chisholm. So this idea of this queenliness, of the challenges, the Black women, there are very unique challenges of the Black woman, but we had what it took the entire time. And this is what my book is about. She Took Justice, is the fact that this is not new. Shirley Chisholm and others, people believe that all of a sudden, because of integration, we have this power among Black people and Black women. It was not integration. We always had this in our DNA. It was given opportunity and being able to force our way to get those opportunities. People died in order for us to have the rights that became the foundation for the Congressional Black Caucus that led to Kamala Harris being Vice President of the United States. So I want to go to our question, and our question is for both of you: what made you all want to get involved in your communities and make a difference? That's the first part. Second part, and how did you do so? Because right now I am in my youth as a young adult, and I want to get out in my community, and I want to get some ideas from people like you who already have. And that's very much to the point I was saying before. You have people who want to get involved, and that's what Representative Bush was saying. It's like, how do you start that one step? And I'm going to just start with my one example. When I was in high school, one of the teachers said to me, "Do you want to get involved in a presidential election?" And I was like, "Great, how?" I mean, I couldn't vote. And so I won't tell you what president it was, but it wasn't Abraham Lincoln. Okay. So what happened basically is that I went around handing out pamphlets from door to door. Remember, she said you can do anything. And what is it that you can do? So I was in the shopping mall just handing out pamphlets. I don't even know if they let you do that anymore. But that's when I got involved. In college, I went to the Democratic committee meetings. I went to the caucuses. So you can get involved in many ways, and you can start on your college campus, a Democratic National Committee club, or a Republican club, if that's what your thing is. But whatever it is, but you can be involved. You can start something or become a part of something. So I'm going to go to Tylik. So young adults who want to get involved, where and when do they enter?
Yeah, so for me, I definitely owe it to having family members in my life who imparted in me to not give up my values and my beliefs. But for me, it started off just being upset. I remember seeing Trayvon Martin being killed, and it really sparked something in me that that could have been me. And I have the understanding is I can have the most accomplished resume and I can do all of this great work. But the fact of the matter is when I step outside of my door, I am still just a Black person in America. And so I wanted to see what I could do to help protect my brothers and protect my friends from having to have had to experience this. And really it was just from being upset. Like you said, taking an opportunity to go to a school board meeting. You don't like what's going on in your school? Show up at the school board meeting and tell them what you want them to know. You don't like what's going on in your city? Show up at the city council meeting. Show up at the board of supervisors meeting. You don't like what's going on with the election? You show up, volunteer, and be a poll worker. Like when you do like little stuff like that in your community, in your school, it really just pushes you to do so even broader things. And on the national, I'll encourage young people, you want to get involved with Youth and College Division. I serve as the National Director of Youth and College, and we're here to make policy and involve the new norm and not the exception. And so it really just takes you finding what you are passionate about, stepping out on faith, and really just running with it.
That sounds fantastic, Barbara. I mean, young people, and I know you have young people there at the Shirley Chisholm Cultural Institute. So, what do you tell young people? How do they get involved? They're sitting on the sidelines, and now that we're starting to open up again, this is a great time to get them energized and involved. And I'm telling you, if you start getting involved as a young person, you will stay involved for the rest of your life.
I would say let your story be told. And what I'm saying by that is how you're feeling. I went to a school that they didn't want me in that community, right? So I went to a school that I was being spat on, bats, what you can name, right? But when one day my dad showed up and that was over. But however, from that experience, I began to protest against the injustices in our communities. And from there, I began to be able to tell stories about what actually happened to me, in a school that I was supposed to be safe, which I was not safe. So I would say to really see where your passion is, because wherever your passion is, you're going to be able to thread that needle into your story of justice, your story of being involved. You can become on the ground with community organizers. You can write stories of the injustice that you're feeling, because we're all feeling it in our spirit and in our hearts. So to be able to know that your story matters, everyone on this call story matters, and everyone has an individual story that needs to be told.
And I true confession here for full disclosure, and I think Barbara knows this. I began as a civil rights attorney. I was always a civil rights attorney. I am still a civil rights attorney, but I was also a writer. And so I have written books, but I also write plays. And my most recent play is Dreams of Emmett Till. Why? Because the story of Emmett Till still bothers me. And as you said, Barbara, I needed to write about it. I needed to get it out of me. So I write stories, I write short stories. You don't have to do just one thing. And I always say to people, what they pay you for during the day, give it on the weekends. Tithe your talent. Give 10%, be a weekend warrior. So the next question is, what are some of the ways we can dismantle violence through civil and human rights work when the other party is non-cooperative while not resisting? So we want people to understand that you can do things to dismantle civil and human rights violations through many ways. You can join nonprofit organizations. You can join NAN, as Tylik has said. You can also be a part of the Shirley Chisholm Cultural Institute. There are so many different organizations you can join. You can start your own organization. But there are ways in which you can see, as Representative Bush said, if there's a politician you think is doing the right work, then help that politician. If you can give them a check, that would be great, because people have light bills to pay. But also, if nonprofit organizations are doing work that you support, that you respect, then support it financially. Sometimes you can put your body on the line. Sometimes you can join a protest. I'm a protest person. So I believe in protest, litigation, legislation, and protest. But I'd like to ask you, as we wind things up, unfortunately, what are some of the ways you can see to dismantle violence that's taking place? And that could be violence that's domestic violence in our communities. And I do not respect the term black on black crime. There's white on white crime, Latino on Latino crime, Asian on Asian crime. So if there's crime in the community, it's just crime. But how do we dismantle violence using civil and human rights work? And if we can make it very quick, that would be fantastic.
I'll be really quick. Go to your community board meetings. I see not everyone goes to the community board meetings. I know everyone's busy and COVID and all that, but be involved. Tell your elected officials that you're not going to take this anymore and you need the support and resources right at home. Speak.
And what I would say simply, if we
I want to say one thing, Tylik. You have a fan club, so I want to make sure that you actually give your information on how people who want to join the committee can join the Youth and College Committee, our division of NAN. So if you want to give that information as well when you complete it.
Yes, definitely. And to young people, if they don't give you a seat at the table, you bring a folding chair, as Shirley Chisholm would say. As Barbara said, your story has value, and your story, your experiences matter, and your voice deserves to be in the room as a young person. And if you want to get involved with the NAN Youth and College Division, I encourage you to go to nationalactionnetwork.net, click on the Youth and College Division page, sign up, and we will get you into the action. And outside of that, going back to the question, what I would say is, I believe that organizing wins. I believe that strategizing wins. I believe that educating wins. And if we stick to those three, strategize, organize, and educate, then we can continue to dismantle these systems that are and if we all come together with our collective power, I believe that we can win. So there we are.
And once again, that information for people who want to join that, Tylik?
Yes, you can go to www.nationalactionnetwork.net, click on the Youth and College Division page, and sign up. And of course, you can follow me on all social media platforms at Tylik McMillan. Feel free to DM me, and I'd love to get you involved and connect you with the local chapter.
Wonderful. And the Shirley Chisholm Cultural Institute, how can people get involved?
It's in the chat, but check us out, info@shirleychisholm.org, shirleychisholminstitute.org, excuse me. And we are on all social media platforms. We're actually building out some programming right now for young people that has to do with virtual reality, and some other programmings involved where you can be a part of what we're doing from your home, COVID safe.
And very quickly in our last minutes, these words that people need to know, that yes, we did the push, we did it right, we did everything we were supposed to do when it came to this past election, and to prove it, we had a backlash. That proves that you're doing the right thing. So now going forward, what do you say to those people? What do we have to do next, looking at the 2022 election and keeping it real when it comes to our political power? And starting with Tylik, what do people need to know to stay inspired and understand that we have another election? It's not just one and we sit on our laurels. We've got to keep it moving.
Complacency is the enemy of accomplishment. We have so far yet to go. What I would tell you is to hold your elected folks accountable. Watch what they're doing. They are up on the chopping block. As said, we're not going with the name that's popular. Who is most popular? But you go with hold their feet to the fire. And if they're not legislating what you were asking them to do, and you get them out of there. Just hold them accountable. Vote.
Wonderful. And Barbara, Shirley Chisholm was an amazing person. Not only, and I tell this story, was she a teacher who decided that she was going to do more than that. But my mentor, my late mentor, Jocelyn Compton Cooper Sr., was, and her husband, Andy Cooper, those part of a class action lawsuit that was the title Cooper versus Power, that led to the redistricting of Brooklyn. And that redistricting led then to Shirley Chisholm's rise as in political office. And so we see just a regular person coming together, deciding what they see in their community was not right, and they wanted to make a difference. And that coming together, that lawsuit, that where they said they actually put a second mortgage on their home in order to have the money for the lawsuit to pay for it, that leads to Shirley Chisholm becoming the first Black woman in U.S. Congress, and also the first Black person to represent Brooklyn. All of this, and now we have the Shirley Chisholm Cultural Institute. Leave us, please, with what you think the insights would be if Shirley Chisholm, looking down from heaven right now, could see this forum. What do you think she would make of this, where we are now?
She would be inspired. She would be thrilled that her legacy is continuing. She would be excited that we really believe in our one vote. We're using our one vote, our voting power. You know, she would be very thrilled about that. And she would always say, never give up, and stay on the course. Do not deter.
And so I'll leave you with that quote, extended quote. The one thing you've got going is your one vote, our one vote. Do not sell that vote out. Shirley Chisholm, Unbought and Unbossed Conversations. I thank you both, Barbara Bullard. Thank you, Tylik McMillan. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate every moment of this conversation. And may you both be blessed in your work, and everything that you have to do be lifted up as we lift up others. Thank you so much. And thank everyone for joining us, and thank you for your questions. This has been an amazing evening. God bless.
Thank you so much, Gloria. So Tylik, Gloria, I know has a hard stop, but we wanted to talk a little bit about what's happening with NAN in terms of what we put in the chat.
Yes. So we encourage folks on April 14th through 17th. We are gearing up for our 30th anniversary convention. Is going to be happening virtual this year. So we encourage you to save the date of April 14th through 17th for National Action Network's 30th anniversary convention. Our convention is going virtual. We will have some of top government officials, grassroots organizers, civil rights leaders, you name it, they're going to be there. So we encourage you to save the date and go to National Action Network for updates and save the date. Yeah.
And I'd just like to say, join us in April. You'll get an email from us. World Healing Day. I will be having a conversation with Ambassador Anwar Chowdhury from the United Nations, who's been fighting for the rights of women and girls for over 3 decades. And follow the Shirley Chisholm Cultural Institute. We're coming out with some great things, and we want everyone to participate in the efforts. And by the way, the Shirley Chisholm Cultural Institute was founded by Shirley Chisholm in 1977. We're the original Shirley Chisholm Cultural Institute. So check us out. We have some fun and exciting and powerful projects coming along, and we love all of you. And thank you so much for taking the time to spend time with us. Have a great day.